everybody and welcome back to I Will Be Okay Thursday. For this week's video, I will be talking about projection and projective identification. Now you may be asking yourself, why am I speaking with an accent? And I will tell you why. Well, before my teenage years, I always spoke in accents, and with my closest friends, I do still talk in an accent very often. But I dated a boy when I was in my younger teenage years, and one day he told me, I don't like when you speak in accents. And I said, why? And he said, because it's annoying. And I was like, okay, I'm sorry. So for many years I almost kind of lost touch with this quality that I have to speak in many different accents. So as a way to continue these skills that I have, I'm going to sometimes speak in an accent in my videos. I also think it's entertaining, so here we go. Okay, so to start the video, I first want to tell you a quote. Now, I don't normally quote the Bible. There are many things I do not like about the Bible. I don't like the history connected to the Bible, mostly, and many of the misogynistic. Sometimes I default to British accent when I should just default to my own real American accent, but I don't. So let's try again. I don't like the Bible for many reasons, and part of that is because of the misogyny and the homophobia and the very deeply ingrained patriarchal values. Anyway, there is some quotes I really like in the Bible. And one of the quotes, it says something along the lines, and I'm pretty sure that Jesus says them. It says, you see the speck in your brother's eye, but you don't see the log in your own. And I think that this quote, it really is explaining to us how projection works. I think this quote really is about projection. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to tell you what projection is, give you the definition and example. Then I'm going to tell you what projective identification is, give you definitions and an example. So by describing to you what these two things are, I'm hopefully going to illustrate to you the difference between the two. I'm going to explain a bit why projection and projective identification can be damaging to ourselves and our life and our relationships. And hopefully by explaining all of this to you, it can help you to become more aware of it in yourself so that you can experience more harmony in your relationships. So if you go onto Google and you look up projection, some definitions will come up, but one of them I thought was quite accurate. It says projection is a pathological defense mechanism proposed by Anna Freud, which is Sigmund Freud's daughter, in which an individual attributes unwanted thoughts, feelings, and motives onto another person. It is the ego's way of defending itself against unconscious impulses or qualities by denying their existence in themselves by attributing them to others. If you look on Psychology Today website, they say people tend to project because they have a trait or desire that is too difficult to acknowledge. And this, I think, functions to preserve self-esteem and self-image. So I was looking back on my notes from school, and one of the articles that I found that we had to read was written by Nathan Field. Oh, there's my American accent. Projection can also be described as having hatred towards parts of the self, and then that hatred is projected outwards. So I find that a good way to know when projection is happening is oftentimes when somebody is doing something and it is intensely annoying you. Like you're like, oh my god, I cannot stand this behavior in this person. And usually it annoys you so much because this behavior is also in you. So a lot of times when I know that projection is happening in my life, in my relationships, I notice that I get really annoyed with people that I really love. So I know myself, I'm like, okay, I know I really love this person, I know that this person is amazing and what they're doing is really annoying me. So what inside of me is similar to this behavior? And I usually am able to find it. Now sometimes you'll be really annoyed with people and you're just annoyed with them and they are doing something very stupid and maybe you don't do it. But I find that when it's also combined with this person is actually a very good person, I really love them, and I'm experiencing this annoyance, then it's usually a good indicator that maybe projection is happening. And that maybe we need to reach within ourselves to have more compassion for the other person who is experiencing what we also experience. So I will give you an example. One of my friends, I love her very much, and when she is having an issue with a man, she cannot stop thinking about it. She cannot stop talking about it. We will be together and I will try to direct the conversation to a different topic, and she somehow always brings the topic back to the man. And when this happened the first couple times, I was like, oh my god, I am so annoyed, can she stop talking about him? I don't want to hear about this problem anymore. And I asked myself, Tasha, why are you so annoyed? And I said, I'm very annoyed. Why am I so annoyed? I'm like, oh, because I do this. I have done this. When I'm having a problem with a guy, I will be like, oh, thinking about all of the different scenarios and all the different ways to see the situation, a different perspective and things like this. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so annoyed with this behavior because I have this behavior inside of myself. And in this moment that I became aware that projection was happening, I thought to myself, okay, if I was her, how would I want somebody to treat me? What would I want them to say to me? And how can I have more compassion for the pain that she's experiencing right now? And every time it has really actually allowed for my friendship with her to grow much deeper. So I appreciate that I was able to become aware of this. So now I'm going to tell you what projective identification is. Now it's a little bit different between projection, and I'm going to tell you why. So projective identification, it actually works in 3 steps for the most part. And this is referenced from Nathan Field's article. So the first step is there's the fantasy of projecting a part of oneself into another person, and of that part taking over the person from within. The second step, there is a pressure exerted via the interpersonal interaction such that the recipient of the projection experiences pressure to think, feel, and behave in a manner congruent with the projection. And the third step, finally, the projected feelings, after being psychologically processed by the recipient, are re-internalized by the projector. I had a friend a couple years ago, and she was going through an issue with a guy, again a guy, and this guy was playing her like a violin, and the things that he was doing, it was so obvious to me because I have been through it and I know the signs, I know the qualities now when somebody is playing you like a fiddle. And I'm talking to her and she's telling me what's going on in the situation, and she is convinced that he loves her, she is convinced that he is not lying, all of these things. And I'm trying to tell her, I'm like, okay, I'm telling you from experience that this guy, he is playing with your emotions, he is not being genuine, and he has a very similar qualities and behavior of my ex. And she didn't want to believe it. She was so anxious, she was so upset, and she's like, no, you. And she's trying to tell me that I am projecting my own experiences onto her, and I was like, no, I'm not projecting, I am just really telling you, like, I can just see it very clearly. Anyway, the conversation finished, I went home. I'm on my way home, I'm taking the train home, and suddenly I'm on the train and I'm starting to feel super anxious. I'm feeling horrible. I'm feeling in my head like so many worries. I'm feeling the same way that I felt when I was with my ex and I was not getting the right answers and feeling very confused. So I got home and I'm with one of my friends and I'm telling him, I'm like, hey, I'm really anxious today, and I told him the story, why. And he said, why are you feeling anxious? I was like, because I know what it feels like to be in her shoes, and I think that her feelings projected out onto me and resonated with a part of me that knows very good and well how it feels to feel the way that she feels. Does that make sense? So when I realized that that was the situation and I was able to process like why I'm feeling this way, okay, because she's feeling this way, it resonates with a part of me from the past that has felt this way as well, and I was able to feel better. There is more of a shared experience in the projective identification. Whereas in just a projection, oftentimes can just be a very singular experience. It's still shared on some level because I think that we can see this like similar behaviors in another person. However, the other person may not exactly feel what we are feeling, as with projective identification it is. So a really great quote that Sigmund Freud said, which concerns projective identification, that I really like, so I want to share with you. He says, "It is a very remarkable thing that the unconscious of one human being can react upon that of another without passing through the conscious." Now the thing with human interactions is that we interact on a conscious level, we interact on an unconscious level. Our conscious, interacts with our conscious, and then that person's conscious interacts with our unconscious, and our unconsciouses interact together. So when we interact with the person, there's so much happening that doesn't meet the eye, and there's so much happening that is not fully conscious. For example, like body language, the way somebody feels, like their energy, like all those things are unconscious. However, they're so important when we interact with people. And I think that projection can play a massive role in how we feel around certain people, if we like them. Because sometimes we literally just like people because of our projections of them. And then you meet them and you're like, oh, I actually don't like you at all. Or sometimes we meet our projections in someone, we think we don't like them, but then you talk to them and you're like, actually, I really like this person. And the ways that they can be damaging is that you can think that something is happening in your relationship that is not actually happening. You can project things, from your past. You can project insecurities. You can project negative feelings and emotion onto a person who is not experiencing them themselves. An example is I had a sort of relationship for a little bit, and in this time frame, I didn't feel like this person really saw me clearly. I don't think this person really could see me and see the relationship that we had, because they were so filled with projections and fears from the past. And it was quite hurtful because I didn't feel understood, I did not feel seen, and I thought that this person was very significant in my life. And at the time that this was all happening, I even expressed to them, I said, I think there's a lot of projection happening and you don't actually see what I'm doing and what I'm saying, and it was very hurtful and a little damaging to the relationship. However, things are okay now, and I'm really glad that we were able to bounce back from this situation. However, had he become more aware of his projections, maybe the situation, it would have been a little bit easier to navigate. It would have been a little less hurtful. And so I think that when we know our projections, when we recognize, okay, what am I, carrying from my past, and what am I carrying out from inside myself onto other people, and how is that manipulating even my relationships in ways. Outside of our relationships with other people, projection can be especially damaging to our ability to transform the self. Because if we think that the problem is always outside of us and that it's not us, we will never really change. If we think that the issue is always external and not internal, we will never really take a strong look at ourselves to say, okay, I also have this problematic behavior, and so I need to correct it, I need to change it. And if we think that, like I said, the problem is this person is annoying us and this person's behavior is bothering me and we never change. we never deepen our level of compassion, and we never deepen our level of really understanding another person outside of our projections. So I want to tell you a little story, last story for this video, but one way that projection worked in my life. When I was younger, I would date people and I would project so much of my greatness onto them. I remember liking guys and I would be like, oh my god, they are so individual, they are so independent, they are so like authentically themselves, and they're so unapologetic. I would think like these really wonderful thoughts about these guys, and then the relationship wouldn't work, and I would look back and I think to myself, wow, all of those thoughts that I thought about them weren't true at all. Oh, that's British. And as years have gone by, I look back and I thought to myself, wait, I was projecting my own qualities onto them. I was projecting my own self-sufficiency, my own individuality onto these people, and I look back and none of these guys were even like this. So I was like, what was actually happening? What did I actually even like about a lot of these people? I learned from this projection what I'm looking for, right? And I learned from this projection to realize that this is something inside of me, and that when I'm looking for this in another person, I need to be really careful that it isn't a projection. And sometimes the only way to really know if it's a projection or not is over time. Because when you initially meet somebody, you first meet your projections of them, always. And over time, you get to really know the person. Something that I learned about in my classes is they said that real love happens only when you know and love the person past your projections of who they are. And I really believe this. When I was studying more like Kabbalah and these other like spiritual traditions, one thing that I learned in my courses there is that we are all mirroring each other all the time. Everybody you meet is either a mirror or a teacher, teaching you about yourself, teaching you the types of people you want in your life and the types of people you don't want in your life, or they are mirroring back to you something in you, something about you. Now, I don't want you to get too confused, because sometimes when you step into this mindset that like everything is projection of you, everything is a mirror, everything is mirror or teacher, it can get to be very confusing and quite mind-boggling, because I've been in a position where I was really thinking this and I kind of lost my mind a little bit when I did this. I think that the best way to be aware of our projections is to notice when we are experiencing disharmony in our relationships, and to really listen to those emotions that are provoked by other people's behavior. Now, sometimes it is the other person's behavior, 100%. And sometimes it is something inside of you, and it's really asking you to dig into yourself to find more compassion for this other person in your life. At the root of projection, really, I think, is our ability to empathize with another person. It's our ability to understand the suffering of another human being. And becoming aware of projection, I think, is an incredible tool as well to become a better person, to experience more peace in our lives, and to really see our relationships, our friendships more clearly, so that we live more in our authenticity in every way. Not just like, oh, I'm authentic, I have on amazing clothes, I don't care what people think of me. It's not just this, it's also authenticity, meaning that you are trying to actually understand the truth of who you are, the truth of your relationships, the truth of your mind and how your mind sees your life. Speaking in an accent for this entire video was a challenge so far, but I'm almost done, so let's keep going. I think that projection is something that can really ruin our relationships. I think that it is something that puts an unnecessary pressure on the people that we love sometimes. I think as well it gets in the way of experiencing a relationship with somebody in that moment. I think that projection is not only these unwanted parts of the self, but I also think projection has a lot to do with trauma, a lot to do with expectations we have of other people based on our fears from things that have happened in our life. Now, projection is, I think, also an innate part of being human and having a psyche. It's okay to have projections. We're always going to have them no matter how hard we try not to. The trick about projections, though, is that what we have to do is just be inquisitive about some of the things that we see. If we have a very, very positive view of something or a very, very negative view of something, I think it's important to try our best to keep a middle ground, to keep a median in the mind of a positive and negative outlook on something, and know that there is a middle ground on how to see something. Now, I think when we experience projective identification, it's important to note that this is, again, a way that humans relate to each other. It's a form of communication. It's a way that humans empathize with one another, and if both are willing to see what is happening, it can be beautifully transformative for both people, I believe. In conclusion, projection can be an incredible tool for us to grow in our self-awareness and consciousness. I think it's also an incredible tool for us to work on if we want to deepen our relationships and really experience deep love with people that we care about. So I think it's safe to say that when we want to point out projection in other people, make sure you know them, or check in with your intuition so you kind of see. But above all, and really at the end of the day, the projections that you can take care of, become aware of, are your own. Wow, speaking in an accent for the whole video was actually kind of challenging, but really fun. And you know, part of the reason why I did this is, like, in my life for the past however many years, I've really tried to retrieve parts of myself that I was told not to, you know, not to embody, not to do, things that made people mad or whatever, that I was like, actually really like that about myself, so like, let me take that back. So anyway, me speaking in an accent is a way of retrieving and keeping that part of myself intact, because I never want anybody to take it away again. So I hope it was entertaining, I hope it was fun for you. I am of a lot of European descent, so I think it's okay that I can speak in that accent. I'm not like mocking European accents, I love them, I wish that I had one, but I was gifted with a Chicago accent, so we close off our nostrils when we pronounce many things, so I guess that's alright. Chicago accent's cool too, yeah? I can do a lot of accents, so I might do more. I don't know. Let me know. If I should do more accents, let me know, okay? Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope this video was informative and helpful. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I probably should tell people to do that at the beginning of the video. I guess I'll do that next time.